Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for being a MAPS coaching client. We're super happy that you joined us today on the call. Kind of the goal of the call today is to really share with you a lot of the opportunities that have actually come our way, during this shift or during this pandemic. And so, whether it's a shift now or shifts that we've been in before, there's some clues in every shift. And so today we're going to go over, what are some of the opportunities that you can look for now and moving forward anytime we do have a shift. Also, a copy of this is going to be recorded, and it's going to be in your MAPS newsletter as how you can access the recording. So don't worry, you'll be able to go back and listen to it again if you'd like to. So let's get started. So first of all, I want to say hello to everyone again and welcome. I see we have people from all over the world on the call, and that is exciting. I'm Kristen Cole. I am a MAPS coach. I have expansion teams across the country. I have a 7th level team in Alaska, and also my expansion hub in Scottsdale, Arizona. So today I want to talk with you about expansion opportunities in a shift, and there are many. So let's look at the first thing that we all need to recognize, and Gary Keller said it: change is inevitable, but participation is optional. Interesting. So in order to see any opportunities in a shift, you've got to be in the game. What does that mean? Well, think about this. Where there is certainty, there's no opportunity. So while we crave certainty and we crave the known, the truth is opportunities come out of uncertainty. And we all often think of uncertainty as being a bad thing. And we just have to change our mindset around that. Because equally true is that in uncertainty, as I said, there's always going to be opportunity. And I'm going to teach you today on some of the ways to look at it, think about it, and how to see it show up. Gary Keller has said many, many times that there's more opportunity during a downturn or during a shift than there is when the real estate market is good. And I believe Gary Keller. So here's the issue. Opportunity always initially shows up looking like a problem. Yes. So what I want us to think about in terms of our mindset is if we will run straight to that problem and get in it, get inside the problem, figure out what's going on. A funny thing happens. You start to see opportunity, but you're not going to see it if you sit on the sidelines. So anytime there's a shift, and shifts, we'll talk about this in a little bit, they have many names, but they always initially show up looking like problems. So you will never see anything when it comes to opportunity sitting on the sidelines. So let's think about that. What are some opportunities that have come out of this shift that we're in? Let's look at, there were layoffs, right? There were people furloughed, people laid off, and most of us think of that as a problem. Well, it can also be an opportunity, because it could be an opportunity for you to make a great hire from someone who's been furloughed. The opportunity for me as an expansion business owner and as the OP of 4 market centers is that I've been able to hire some incredibly talented people that actually were furloughed. And I did that this summer. Let's look at another potential problem. Sheltering in. Most of us saw sheltering in March and April as a problem. How am I going to list and sell real estate? And the truth is that the opportunity to conduct the business of real estate was ours. We just had to do it in a different way. So the path is still the path. The path doesn't change. And the path is that even though we were sheltering in, we had to figure out how to lead generate. That was the opportunity for us. And there are a lot of us who did just that. And just remember this: the path is the path, and lead generation, we always need to be about lead generation. What's interesting is the delivery of the message might change, but lead generation never does. So the opportunity to find the right message of the moment to connect with people was our opportunity to find. And what Gary said is, become the first responders to your clients, to your family. Make those eye care calls. Make those genuine, meaningful text to friends and loved ones and your clients, and really become versed on social media interactions. So here's what I'd say: don't fear failure, and don't fear a shift. Fear regret more. So it's the opportunity for us going through these little nuggets that I've learned from Gary, being in his top group over the last year, has taught me so many lessons about business, about life, about people. One thing he said here a couple of weeks ago is he said, "Don't wish this to go away. Don't wish it to just quickly be past, because in doing so, you're going to miss some great things that also happen during this shift." So let's look what else. We see in a market disruption. Market shifts and market disruptions are really the same thing. Their names just change. So let's think about that. There was a major oil shift in 1989 that just tanked the Alaska market. Oil went from $100 a barrel to less than 10. We had an attack on our country with 9/11. We had an economic shift in 2008. We have a pandemic in 2020, just to name a few. So those are all shifts. They just had different names, but they're all market disruptors. They're all shifts. And what Gary talks about is that the keys to shifts is to get in front of them, to find opportunity, which looks like big fat problems initially, and then get back to work. So as I mentioned, those are all the disruptions that can happen. And disruption, if you think about it, it creates what? It creates uncertainty. It creates fear. So in a shift, and in the book Shift, Gary talks about buyers and sellers that need someone or needed someone to intervene and help them overcome their reluctance. In COVID-19, this disruption has happened as well. We ended up with what we would call the 5 types of shadow sellers. Now think about that. And they need us to intervene for them. They need us to help them. Just, buyers and sellers needed us to help them during the shift in 2008. They need us to help them right now too, to intervene. So who are these shadow sellers? So these are the opportunities that a shift is giving us right now. So we have the sellers that should be on the market, meaning they were sellers who stopped the process when COVID hit. Those that could be on the market, those would be people that maybe are 6 months to 12 months away from wanting to sell. There would be those that have been on the market in the past, expireds, and those who just might be on the market in the future because they have second homes they have not gotten to visit during this shift. And so some of them are thinking, maybe I should put that home on the market. So those are shadow sellers that really should be sellers right now in the heat of the market that we have had. So knowing what that conversation looks like, that is your opportunity. At the same time we had sellers who needed us to intervene, we also have had agents who needed us as leaders and us as their friends to intervene and help them overcome fear, get off the couch, and get back to connecting with their clients. So I'm going to run through about 6 things that this shift has really helped us. Like how do we actually find those opportunities? How do we walk through this? How do we articulate what's going on in the market? Like the 7 reasons that you might want to have your house on the market right now. So remember I said that lead generation doesn't change. What changes is the message and the delivery of the message. So we have to find the right messaging to connect with our clients and our customers. And at first it was the I care calls. And then we moved into how do we help them understand that while they may be nervous and they may have been one of those 5 shadow sellers, there's 7 good reasons that they might want to have their house on the market right now. And Gary said, we need to be that expert and that loyal agent that is sharing that with them between now and April. He says it's really important, not only that we're connecting with them, but we're sharing our knowledge and what we know about the market so that they can make good decisions for their family. So let's look at the first thing. It doesn't matter what kind of a shift it is. Let's look at the first thing that we need to do in any type of shift. So number 1 is focus. When a market disruption happens, there's 4 things that we need to do immediately. And the first one is focus. And I would say we need to narrow our focus on what you can control. A lot of us are thinking about, oh my gosh, I can't, way too much about what we can't control We need to focus on what we can control. You can control your calendar. You can control what goes on it. You can control the activities that you choose to do or not do, as well as the meetings you allow or don't allow to get on your calendar. And what about your fun time? Time is our most valuable asset, so we need to use it wisely. The second thing we can control is our attitude. We can control whether we're thinking poor me, or or we could change our mindset and think, what's the number one thing that I can do to change my mindset or to change this situation or get the best out of it? So you have to ask yourself, are we letting fear and anxiety take over? Are we finding moments of peace and calmness amidst this crazy busyness? So also, the third thing that we can control is our behavior. How we treat others, how we treat ourselves. Are we taking good care of ourselves? Are we being authentic and present? Are we being kind? Are we watching our words? You never know the impact that you might have on someone. I saw that traveling yesterday. I saw some incredibly great human kindness that made me so happy. And then number 4, you can control your business. And I want to talk a lot about that. So when I mean you can control your database is your business is your database. So don't let others control your business. How would they control it? Well, I've heard Gary say it. If you're buying leads from Zillow and tomorrow Zillow changes their format or they change their algorithm and you're out, they're controlling part of your business. So Gary says control your business means your database is your business is your database. You need to feed it, you need to connect with it, and that no one can take away from you. So the other thing I'd share is your database, of course, is your business. So what type of things can you be doing to connect with your database? Remember I said lead generation, still lead generation. Yes, we were sheltering in March, but we all figured out how to get it done. And the first thing was making I care calls. And we're going to talk more about that later. But what I really want you to see here is narrowing your focus is the number one thing that you can do when an initial shift happens. Narrow your focus and double down on what you do really well. And that is connecting with your database. It should be number one that all of us do, because that's where the long-term business comes from, is nurturing your database, adding to your database, connecting with your database for your entire business career. So let's look at number 2. So when a shift happens, the second thing that we need to do is we need to plan. So what's your plan? Do you have a plan for 2021? We just talked about narrowing your focus, which is super important. But what that also means, and Gary says it so well, you've got to get small to get big. What does that mean? In other words, you've got to simplify. And I think you wrote a book about that. So we need to go from being very strategic in our business. When a shift happens, we go from very strategic to very tactical very quickly. This requires plans with shorter time frames and higher execution. So one thing you might want to do during this time is you might want to read the 12-week year. What would the 12-week year is really about narrowing your focus, double down on what you're good at, evaluating your execution, and executing at a much higher level. So it means getting your 3 buckets in order, if you will. So when you get super tactical, and the first thing that you always do when you go through a shift, like I said, focus, double down on what you're good at. Number 2, plan. And in your planning, the first thing you do is you examine your expenses. You cut the fat, you cut some of the muscle if necessary, because you just have to get lean to survive. Because Gary said this right away. He said, you've got to survive this. So you need to cut and make more cuts and more cuts to make sure that your business can survive, so that it does have the opportunity to thrive on opportunities that will come later. So he says, but first your business must survive. So number 2, look at your systems. Are they simple? Are they efficient? So that you can be more effective. So can you simplify? Again, we get back to these 3 buckets. The third one is examine your capacity. Do you have the right number of people to execute on your plan. You might need to take that number up. That's what I did. I added 2 people actually to our business. So we cut expenses, we cut the fat, we even cut some of the muscle. We cut over $700,000 out of our budget. That's a lot of money. But it allowed us to then turn around and hire some talent that had been furloughed, that have allowed us now to start it back into growth mode. So we examined our expenses, we examined our systems to make sure they were efficient, and then we examined our capacity and set us up for, after we survived that initial sheltering in, what it allowed us to do was start to grow again quickly. We also took our GPS and we used it 30 days at a time, because that's as far as we could see. We couldn't even see that far, but at least it allowed us to narrow that focus and increase the execution. The third thing that we did is we increased our communication. So increasing your communication and communicating constantly is incredibly important during a shift. So we moved to daily stand-ups, for instance. This allowed us to get rid of roadblocks that came along. It also allowed us to see small opportunities that were creeping in. It allowed us to celebrate wins on a daily basis because there's so much craziness going on. It was fun to celebrate wins. It allowed us to feel more community. And those daily huddles also with our agents. And we did it by region. So we had the West Coast and the Mountain Time Zone doing a stand up with their agents. We had it in the Central Time Zone. We had it in the Eastern. And those daily huddles with our agent helped us keep them focused on scripts, role plays. What is the message of the moment that needs to be delivered in order for people to take action and get out of being paralyzed? And then we did daily huddles also with my market center leadership, because I wear more than one hat. I have an expansion team, I have an expansion leadership team, we have expansion agents, and I'm the OP of 4 market centers. So having those daily stand-ups, removing roadblocks, celebrating wins, and on Mondays, we looked at what are our 3 big rocks for the day. And we communicated with one another verbally and in English. And I say that because it's like the exit row on a plane. I need to hear it verbal and I need it to be in English. And we would communicate, what are our 3 big rocks for the week? So Mondays were always about sitting down and doing 411s with me and going over what their plan was for that week, how they did the week before, et cetera. Tuesdays are big rock days. What are our 3 big rocks this week? And also, do we have any roadblocks that we need to, that you need help getting out of the way? We also would look at daily wins. What has been some wins that we can all talk about and count on? And then on Wednesday and Thursday, those were very tactical stand-ups. We looked at ahas that we were learning from this shift, but they were super tactical. How do we pivot and move around the roadblocks? I call it wiring around the bad stuff. And what opportunities are we also starting to see? And then on Fridays in our stand-ups, we examined our execution on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being I didn't execute at all, and 10 being I crushed it. You want to look at how did we do on execution? And if we didn't score better than an 8.5, we ask ourselves, why not? What could we have done different in order to execute at a high level? And ladies and gentlemen, it won't be a surprise that most of the time it comes down to what you did or didn't have in your schedule. So then let's look at number 4, the opportunities that we find in a shift through expansion. Number 4 is message and delivery. So we've talked about focusing, narrowing your focus. We've talked about planning, being way more strategic or tactical versus strategic, communicating at a much higher level and communicating daily. Now we're going to talk about, well, what's the message? What's the message of the moment, and what is the best way to deliver that during the shift that we have? As I mentioned earlier, the path is still the path. The path doesn't change. We must lead generate. The delivery and the message may change and did change, but the lead generation never does. So there's always an opportunity to find the right message of the moment to connect with people. And so we became right away the first responders for our clients. So they were I care calls and being genuine and authentic, and looking at how can we help them? Do they need groceries delivered? Because we were considered essential, we could actually help those people. And so there was lots of ways that we figured out right away how to connect with our database, especially if we hadn't connected with them in a while. We all know what that's like. And if you haven't connected with them in a while, the opportunity that this shift gave us was huge because we could just come from care and contribution and wanting to make sure their family was okay. That allowed us to get back in the flow, if you will, with our database using the Ford, family, occupation, recreations, and dreams. And at the same time, not only that, it allowed us to have those caring conversations. So even right now, there's so many different cities and states that are shutting back down again. Those I care calls during the holidays could be a lifeline to people. And it's a way to connect with them in a much deeper and much more emotional manner. Then we also talked about, well, what would be the genuine, meaningful ways of communicating once we kind of opened up a little bit. And so the messaging changed a little bit. And how are we going to connect with those shadow sellers? Remember, I told you there were 5 shadow sellers that found themselves on the sidelines. And how could we communicate in such a way? And we did this through social media, we did it through text, we did it through phone calls. And that was, oh my goodness, Mr. Seller, do you know that there's 7 really good reasons that you should consider having your house on the market at this time? We wrote an entire 8x8 campaign around this idea. And so the first communication was an email from me basically saying, I've never seen a market like this in 36 years. And you guys know me, you trust me, and this is a genuine email to say, call me and let's talk about your real estate situation because this may be the very time that you need to sell. So the first was an email. Then the second was we sent a market report out to our past clients and our current clients. And we sent it to them and we said, oh, by the way, if you would like it to be really specifically narrowed down instead of more general, let us know. Then we followed it up with a text. Did you get my email? And interestingly enough, so many people responded. It was amazing. It truly was. So we wrote an entire campaign around this message of, to these 5 shadow sellers, the 5 types of shadow sellers, using the message of the 7 reasons that you might want to have your house on the market today. We did it through text. We did it through email. We did it through video. We did it through social media. And it has set us up. I remember last week, the Wasilla Hub calling me and saying, it's not slowing down. I have 9 listing appointments next week. Sorry. That's incredible. So again, it's time on task over time. It's coming up with the right message for the right moment and then the right way to deliver it. Everybody likes things differently. So we have to make sure, as Gary says, that we're communicating with our database the way they want to be communicated with. Some people like text, some people like email, some people like video. So I would say video and texting are the 2 that have worked the best right now in communicating with your clients that have done business with you in the past. So when you think about all that, and think about what's going to be our next program. Well, what I can tell you is when we really wrote this 8x8 program, the cool thing about it is we test it. We always test everything in the hub first, and then we rinse and repeat, and we look at our results. And then once we do that, then we implement it in our expansion locations. So another thing that we did, we pivoted when COVID first started. And instead of giving away a spring plant like we typically do in March or April, we actually went and bought gift cards at our local restaurants. And it was fantastic. We did some videoing with some restaurants that were actually my clients. And got them involved as well. And then we went and delivered these gift cards, and we had Bed Bath and Beyond soap, and we put them in these bags, and we would just set them on people's doorstep and let them know that we were dropping by. And then they would go spend those gift cards, ordering out takeout from those restaurants. And of course, they would always spend more than the $25 gift card. So it was just this gift that kept on giving. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Every shift, every challenge, there's an equal opportunity. And you just have to figure it out and wire around the bad stuff and figure out how to keep connecting with your client at a much higher level. And they will, the letters and emails that we have gotten from the different events that we have done since COVID started, like, we still lead generate, so we still have events, they just look differently. We had, Pi Day last month. We had over 500 people in our Alaska location, and over 2,000 pies given away with our expansion teams. That was it. That was just super incredible. And we did it in a very, um, uh, you know, uh, very safe way. We just had to figure out how to do it and how to get that message out and to be calling into our database. So I want you to just think, what's the message? How are you going to deliver it to stay safe and to keep your family safe? And most of the ideas that have we have come up with has really been through a lot of collaboration, because when you have so many expansion teams across the country, you have to remember that what's happening on the East Coast is different than what's happening in Texas, different than what's happening in Arizona, California, and I could go on and on. So the point is, I actually had our director of events become my go-to person to tell me what was happening in all those locations, so that we could actually do it in a safe manner. For instance, in our location in Florida, they had a drive-through pie pickup, where they drove in, through the drive or the parking lot, and they were delivered them in a very safe way. They did the Santa thing, where they actually had drive-through Santa as well, where they were able to stay safe, but kids were still be able to see Santa and give Santa their Santa list. And so there's a way to do everything. You just have to figure out what's the message, what's the delivery of that message, and then how can you stay super connected with your clients. There's several more like WD-40, but we'll come to those at the end if we have extra time. So the fifth thing I want us to look at is, we talked about focus, planning, communication, message, and delivery. I want you to think about opportunity. As I mentioned, anytime there's a shift and there's challenges, there's always equal opportunity, but you got to run to the problem. When you run to the problem instead of sitting on the sidelines, that's where you'll find opportunity. As I said earlier, opportunity always looks like a problem first. When you get in the middle of that problem and start figuring it out, oh my gosh, you see opportunities everywhere. And the more opportunities you see, then it starts a domino effect. And you start to think about, well, that opportunity will cause this opportunity that might cause this opportunity. So there's always opportunities to continue to get into relationships with talent. And I would strongly suggest that you do, because with the shutting down and opening up and shutting down and opening up, there's been a lot of people, unfortunately, their businesses are probably closed forever. Those people need jobs. Those people need opportunity. They need a bright future. And getting into to relationship with those talented people and helping grow your business at the same time is a great opportunity. Also, look at what's starting to change and what that might look like a year from now or 2 years from now. Think about commercial office space. Think about commercial retail space. Now, I was in a conversation where Gary was sharing with us. He believes about a third of the people who used to work in an office space will stay at home after the pandemic is over. About a third of them will go back to the office full time, and about a third will work both from the home and the office. And probably 10% of the people are out of that business, period. So if you think about that, what might be happening to commercial office space? There might be a lot of it empty in the future. The same with retail space and restaurant owners, bar owners. And so if you think about that, if there's going to be a lot of excess capacity, excess space, then your brain, you might want to go to thinking about, how could we repurpose that commercial retail space? How could we repurpose that office space? Because right now we have a housing shortage, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We need about 1 million houses a year built. Only about 650,000 have been built per year over the last decade. So before the pandemic even started, we were in a housing shortage. Well, we're certainly continuing to be in a housing shortage with the challenges of new construction and getting materials and the cost of materials right now. So the cool thing is that will produce an opportunity. So we have a shortage of housing, and we have an overcapacity. We have an oversupply of retail and office space. How might that be repurposed in the future? It'll be interesting. And if some of it does come on the market, or banks do get some of it back, who might you want to be in relationship with now in order to take advantage of that commercial opportunity? You might want to attract, as OP, some commercial agents into your office who are going to know about those commercial deals that you can share with other people. So be thinking ahead, getting in front of opportunity. Getting in front of it means you've got to prepare now for what's to come. Gary Keller said that, didn't he? You should be preparing for the market that's coming, not that the market that we're already in. So that's what I mean by forward-thinking opportunity. I'll give you another example. Right now, a lot of people were unable to go to their vacation homes this summer. So what'd they do? They got an RV, and they took their family on vacation via RV. Well, here's what's interesting. We had a shortage of RV parks. So what did they do? The commercial owners pivoted, and what they do? They converted mobile home parks into luxury RV parks. That's what I mean about seeing what the demand is, how you can repurpose some property into a different vertical and meet the demand. That's what I mean about getting in front of opportunity. So let's look at number 6, which
Kristen,
is...
Before we move forward, do we have time for 2 quick questions?
Of course.
Perfect. Okay, so question number 1, you mentioned the Pie Day event that we did for Thanksgiving. Can you talk a little bit about how the different locations actually delivered the pies? Obviously keeping in consideration COVID, safety procedures. How did they actually go about the execution of Pie Day?
So as I mentioned, in Florida, they did a drive-through Pie Day, just like a drive-through Santa, where you know, people had protective gear on, so to speak, you know, gloves and face masks, etc. And they delivered, you know, so people would just drive through the parking lot, stop, and pick up their pie from one of the team members that was prepared by Costco with lids already on them, etc. So that was one way of doing it. In an Arizona location, they took the entire foyer of a commercial office building and filled it with pies, and then people could come into the building, you know, and maintain distancing without being in a super crowded area. In Alaska, they took the office building, or office space where our hub is located, and they put the pies in different offices. And then when you came in, depending on your last name, you would go to a different location, again, keeping that distancing. And at the same time, it allowed us to wear, you know, obviously facial masks, and gloves, and maintain safety. So there was, again, I want you to just put the word how in front of can we. That will help you so much in terms of thinking about, yes, you're going to do it. It's just the how. And can we ask the question of whether it can be done? If you decide you're going to do it, then the only question is how. And so many people together collaborating, depending on their location and depending on whether or not they were, you know, in a certain shutdown mode or not, they came up with their plan to stay safe, and it worked beautifully. Is there another question?
One more quick one. You mentioned the 7 reasons why sellers should sell in this market, and there's a document or a visual with that. Is that document something that we're able to share with the people on the call here today?
I'll tell you what we'll do. We will get that to our MAPS folks, and they can put it in the newsletter that they send out to you, or tell you where to grab a hold of it. So I'll make sure that we get that to MAPS, so that you guys can use that right away. Because Gary said that is something you should be doing between now and April on a daily basis, is sharing that information with your clients. So I'll be happy to do that.
Perfect. That's all the questions for now. And just as a reminder to everybody on the call, if a question comes up, please feel free to use the chat box and we will get it over to Krista.
Perfect. So now let's talk about the 6th opportunity during a crisis or a shift with expansion. And what would those opportunities be? Talent, my friends, talent, talent, talent. And, you know, there are a lot of people who were furloughed. We know that. There was at one time the unemployment rate reached just a screechingly high number. It was like 15%. It's still at 7%. So we still have a very high number. But the point is this: while that is absolutely unfortunate, it is an opportunity for someone who maybe wants to make their first hire. And now there's a talent pool out there that's never been there before. I mean, if you think about it, real estate people naturally come from hotel hospitality and restaurant and bar owner. I mean, they make perfect real estate agents. So some of those people that have been furloughed might be great buyer agents. They might be great listing partners. They might be fantastic showing assistants. We had someone in our organization he was an engineer and was furloughed. He became a buyer agent for another agent in our Scottsdale location and has just soared and done so well. He's put people in his downline. He listed $1.2 million house. That was his first listing. But these are people that were furloughed, that given an opportunity to partner with somebody that they knew. So he partnered with the guy that had sold him his house originally and became his buyer agent partner. So there are so many ways that you can take a lemon and make lemonade with the folks that have been furloughed, because it's not that they're not talented people. It's just that we have a very unusual situation here that hasn't happened for 100 years. And there's an opportunity if you look for it. So I would say if you're looking to make your first hire or maybe your 12th hire, there are talented people out there. I'll give you another example. We have some incredibly talented people in our support team. Well, we have a lot of people in our support team that are in the Philippines, and so many people lost their jobs. They didn't have the government program that we did. They didn't have the stimulus that we do. And there were some incredibly talented people that found themselves without a job. And our talented people went and found them. And we hired several people during this shift and pandemic because we needed more skilled people. And that was the opportunity that it provided for us. So I just want you guys to be thinking about, in your mind, anytime you think about this shift or this pandemic and the challenges and problems that it's caused, I want you to equally turn that around and think, but what opportunity could be there if I looked for it? What opportunity could be there for my family? What opportunity could be there for my friends? What opportunity could be there for my clients? So there's always opportunity, but you're never going to find it if you sit on the sidelines. You've got to run smack dab into the problem, run all the way through it, and you're going to find opportunity. So let's go back and just review a second, because I want to, expansion opportunities during a shift. Just understand that change is inevitable. And Gary said, but our participation, meaning us being willing to change, is optional. And so we have to have the mindset of being willing to participate. And during any shift, there's always a market disruption. We know that too. And there's uncertainty and there's fear. And we have to control what we can control. So number one, focus. Double down on what you're good at. Number two, plan. And make your plan more tactical versus strategic. Number three, communicate the heck out of it. Communicate with your team, with your family, with your clients, and make sure that everyone is staying safe. And as Gary would say, have a handful of people that you've committed to checking on a weekly basis. And then, of course, the message and the delivery of the message and what that looks like. Finding opportunity in the problems, and then picking up some incredibly talented people that might have been furloughed. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. We have a few minutes left, and you guys might have some more questions about this. I've been through, this is my 36th year in real estate, and what I can tell you is that I have seen lots of opportunity, and I've through several shifts, and so happy to answer any questions in the chat box. Do we have any questions?
None at this time. I'm sure people are typing as we speak, so go ahead and type any questions. We have plenty of time left, so please feel free to pick Kristen's brain on anything that you heard today or anything that's lingering in the back of your mind. This is your time to ask whatever could benefit you and your business.
Yeah, and I just also wanted to share with you all that if you would like some help with, maybe building that plan, building out your communication, building a really solid foundation so that you can take advantage of the opportunities and really scale your business, whether or not you go into another zip code, or whether you go just across the street into another subdivision, or whether you go into another city. We have a class coming out. It's a MAPS group coaching program. And if you go to the next slide, Joe, and show that, yeah, the launch date is January 27th. The investment is $398. It's 8 weeks long, where we walk you through, everything that you need to know in order to scale your business. And when I say scale, don't think expansion, think growth. If you want your business to grow, it has to be built on a strong foundation, and building it on a strong foundation and we have playbooks on every single thing we do. So building it on a foundation with scalable systems and models, with hiring, with, learning how to do career visioning, and because that is a system, and you just have to know how to run the play. So it's every week for 8 weeks. Joe is going to be my partner in crime on that. And we would love for you to register. You can go to scaleyourbusiness.co and to sign up. And we would love to have you. And again, we're just going to walk you through everything that we do, how we do it, how we're efficient, effective, how we have playbooks for everything, and how to build a solid foundation so that you can grow in any direction that you want. And also, I also wanted to just thank you guys again for being a Mastery client, and for allowing us during this time to just bring into your world some nuggets that we've learned over this shift in the market. Shifts are shifts. They just have different names. There's lots of opportunity. So I don't know if there's any other questions that have come in that we can answer before we conclude.
Yes, there are, Kristen. We have several questions.
Okay.
First, the first one is, can you quickly recap who those shadow sellers are and where we may be able to find new listings?
Yeah, so shadow sellers, if you remember, everybody knows one, I can tell you that. So the first one is those that should be on the market, meaning those that were probably in the process getting their home ready to go on the market and stop the process when COVID hit. So go back and call those people. Number two, those that could be on the market, meaning those are people that have said to you, when my son graduates from high school, or once the twins are, I'm going to have another baby. And so, but they're like 6 to 12 months away from selling. But the question you have to ask them is, if I could show you right now a way for you to get more for your house than you ever thought humanly possible, would you be willing to move up your timeline if you could get more money? So it's just scripts and dialogues like that for those sellers who could be sellers. And then those who used to be sellers, meaning expireds. Why would you call expireds? Because we have the red hot, or as my bold husband would say, white hot market. Call them. They wanted to sell it sometime. So those would be a great source also. And then another shadow seller that just might be sellers. We have had a lot of success with this, and that is the people who own second homes. Seth Godin said that 71% of people that own second homes own them free and clear. Well, if you own a free and clear asset that you cannot enjoy because because of the lockdowns, you might be thinking about moving that money to a different opportunity. So you, the real estate expert, should be calling them and letting them know what opportunities exist, and that the market is red hot right now. And this might be a great time for them to move out, or, move their money out of that second home. So those are those shadow sellers. And we will certainly make that and the 7 reasons that you might want to be selling in this white hot market available through MAPS.
So
other questions?
Yes, ma'am. The next one is asking about whether or not it makes more sense to hire a virtual assistant or an actual assistant locally. And they understand that they can use a virtual assistant at a lower cost and get more hours out of them. That versus taking advantage of hiring somebody local that they can see in the office and maybe have fewer hours. Do you have any experience or advice to a person trying to make that decision for their business?
I think first of all, I would walk around with a pad and paper for 2 weeks and write down two things. Anything you never want to do again. You just don't enjoy it. And the second thing I would write down is what is not a good use of my time in terms of, you know, I you know, I can make more money selling real estate versus picking up my dry cleaning. And I call it a stop doing list. If you write down for 2 weeks everything you don't like to do or that is not worth your time doing, you will come up with a job description. I guarantee it. Now, what you're going to look at is, does that job do those things? Like, do you really enjoy going through all of your email? I don't. I get so much email. I get 400 and 500 emails a day. So I've trained one of my virtual assistants. She doesn't have to be sitting next to me. I just had to train her. That's the key with a virtual assistant. They have to be trained just like someone sitting next to you. But oh, by the way, when you walk in every day and you sit next to them, you don't realize how much you train them because you're sitting there. And so then you hire a virtual assistant and you don't understand why they aren't trained the same way because you never trained them. What I can tell you is that they can do activities that require a high degree of sittability. Like what? Like posting on your social media, like checking all your email. We have 12 virtual assistants who help us with soup to nuts. I mean, everything under the sun. No, they can't go pick up my dry cleaning, but they can send snacks via Amazon to my office so that I don't get hangry. So there's lots of things that they can do. There's just very little that they can't do. They do all of our production reports every month. They do all of our, checking all the way through the transaction to make sure that the DAs get done right and we get paid right and it gets to the right place. So I could go on and on and on. But I think what you need to do first is decide, what do you not want to do or isn't worth your time to do, and get it all written down. Take a look at that and ask yourself, does the person to do these things to help me, does that person need to sit next to me or not? And I think that'll help you make your decision.
Yeah, I love that advice. That's perfect. So going back to commercial real estate, Kristen, and the ways that you think investors may decide to repurpose it, do you have any insights or ideas as to what you think the primary opportunities will be? There's a comment in here that in Spain, some hotels are being converted into residences for elderly folks. So do you have any other additional insights or maybe just ideas of what that might look like moving forward?
Well, I don't know specifically yet, Joe. However, what I do know, there are certain facts that we do know. We do know we have a housing shortage. We do know we have excess capacity in hotels, office space, and retail space. So it will not surprise me for some ingenious people to figure out a way to make some really cool apartment flats, to make condos and townhouses out of this excess capacity. I don't know what it looks like exactly, but I do know that before COVID, most of us we really thought a lot about the fact that, at least I did, I wanted a smaller home. I wanted a smaller home. I did, I wanted it to be a nice home, but I just wanted it to be smaller. So I was willing to still pay what it would take for it to have the home and the style and the condition and the amenities that I wanted. However, I wanted it to be a smaller home. Well, interestingly enough, how many of us right now, if we took a poll, would say they want a smaller home? Not me, right? So because of what we have just experienced, and Gary says 30% of those people will continue to work from home after this pandemic is over. You now have a change, a fundamental change in what buyers want in the real estate market. So in doing that and thinking about that, you can see where what used to be. I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine, an agent, and she's near New York City. And before COVID, everybody and their mom wanted to sell their 1980, 1990 home that was big, that needed some remodeling, and they wanted a smaller home with all the new features. Well, that has changed. Now they're just remodeling the home that they have because they need that space, and it makes more sense. So, I think we just all have to look at what is it. Gary said this one thing. Well, he said lots of things, but one thing he said, he pulled out his cell phone and he said, people want to do business right here on this for everything. So I think as real estate agents, we need to be asking our clients constantly, What has changed? What do you want that's different based on how you function as a family now versus how you function before COVID? Because there was an interesting comment made, and it was by one of Gary's guests that he had on our Zoom call, and that was that the idea of us not having another health issue, threat, scare, pandemic is unlikely. It's very likely it may have a different name, and it may be 3 years from now or 5 years from now. But it's we. What he said is we need to learn how to adapt in this very uncertain world, and and so that may change how we view our housing and how we view raising our families forever. So that's just some things to get your motors running and get thinking about what that could look like. But I think that there's going to be tremendous opportunity for those people who stay in the game, who are actively, having conversations with clients, who are watching what's going on. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the future. And I think we're in the right business.
All right, Kristen, two more questions as of right now. One is a question specific to the Arizona market. Do you believe that the market in Arizona will continue to be strong, given that the supply and demand dynamic, given that so many people are continuing to move to Phoenix and to the greater Phoenix area? Do you have any insights as to what you think will happen in big markets like Phoenix?
Well, in Phoenix in particular, what we've seen is a tremendous influx of people from California, Portland, Seattle, Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. And so, just to give you an example, this is just craziness, but it's true. In the month of October, we sold over 100 homes that were over $2 million. Now, we don't even have 100 homes over $2 million in the state of Alaska. So the fact that we sold 100, and what we found is that people from California are coming, and they're moving out of California and they want to buy a home. You can buy a whole lot more home in Arizona for a whole lot less money than you can in California. And so with the influx of demand, we have not seen we have not seen a shift in the market at all. We've seen a tiny bit of slowing in the upper end. And when I say upper end, I mean, above 3 million. Anything under 500,000, it's still multiple offers. I remember one of our agents the other day had an open house and had 72 buyers through that open house in one day. That is crazy. So here's what's interesting. Timing the market. I really don't try to time the market. I try to make really good decisions about the assets that I have. I have sold some assets in this last 6 months because they had reached the end of their useful life for me, meaning some of them I'd owned for 17 years, and they were getting to a place where they were going to need a lot of money spent on them: new roofs, new boiler systems, new appliances, etc. And so I chose to sell some properties that I owned, even though there was a lot of even though it was still a super hot market, just because it was a good time to move into a different asset allocation, or a different asset class. So I did a 1031 exchange into a couple of properties in Arizona, and I put some money to cash.
All right, last question of the day, Kristen. This comes from a relatively newer real estate agent in the Southern California market, and he's wondering, what is the number one advice you have for him right now in this current market condition?
And what was the first part of the question again?
So a newly licensed agent in Southern California, what's the number one piece of advice you would give to him given the current market?
You get your phone out every day and you call everyone that you know, everyone in your phone, and you talk about real estate. That's the number one thing you can do, because the number one thing in real estate right now to get business as a new agent is from people that know you. So let them know that you're in real estate, and be a sponge, find out as much as humanly possible about the market so you can be that expert. Go shadow somebody for a day that is doing it at a high level, and you just call your SOI, and you call them every single day. Because right now, here's what I'll also tell you. Find the area that you want to own. Like Gary says, go put a flag in it. Go find the area that you want to own and door knock it. You think door knock during a pandemic? Yes, door knock it, because you can be safe, you can keep them safe. And here's the thing, right now, if you go, we have somebody door knocking right now, and he's been doing it for a month straight in this one subdivision. He has 57% of the people opening the door. Last Friday, he had 100% of them opening the door. And he steps back, but he is becoming, he is going to take territory there. So those would be the things I do. Call everybody in your phone as a new agent. Go be a sponge and go shadow some people that are doing it at a high level. And then go find the subdivision you want to own or the street you want to own and door knock it.
Perfect. Well, that's all we had for questions, Kristen. That wraps us up.
Well, again, thank you all for being MAPS Mastery clients. We love you. And just know that the recording of this will come out in the MAPS newsletter. And just want to say thank you to Monica and her great team for having us on today. And don't forget to sign up for Scale Your Business. Thanks so much. And thank you, Joe, for being my co-host.